Dude, what the fuck is that person talking about?
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson tonight. For the past week, all of us have seen chaos engulf our beloved country. The violence and the destruction have been so overwhelming, so shocking and awful and vivid on the screen, that it's been hard to think clearly about what's going on. Most of us haven't been able to step back far enough to ask even the obvious questions. The most obvious, of course, is what is this really about? What do the mobs want? Well, if thugs looting the Apple store can't answer that question, they have no idea. They just want free iPads. But what about Apple itself and the rest of corporate America, which is enthusiastically supporting the rioters? What about members of Congress, the media figures, the celebrities, the tech titans, all of whom are cheering this on? What do they want out of it? Well, they haven't said.
Because what they said was so true, especially the one who said, if my dad was a soldier.
So if my dad was a soldier, but the cops killed my brother, do I stand for one anthem and then kneel for the other?
Well, they haven't said.
Then go do your job. Why are you standing there? Why are you holding on to your gun?
Well, they haven't said.
Communities right now, we would love to see, us pulling back on policing and investing in the things that we feel like are going to make our community safer.
Well, they haven't said.
Education, housing, jobs.
Well, they haven't said.
But in addition, I think there are things that we can do within policing to lessen the amount of police violence that we're seeing.
Well, they haven't said.
You make a mistake, another mistake, there's a very severe possibility you're both going to get shot. Do you understand that? Yes.
You have to do something that is so egregious. And also, they're looking at the qualified immunity right now at the Supreme Court today. You need to do something that's so egregious and has already been done and found to be that egregious to be held to account. Otherwise, you just slide under.
I'm going to give you a bunch of facts in a row, and people are going to get really uncomfortable. They're going to feel really difficult about this stuff, because here's the reality. If you base your opinion on the facts, this may force you to come to some conclusions you wish you didn't have to come to.
Since 1977, the amount that our country has spent in total on policing has nearly tripled, with adjustments for inflation. But what's interesting is the tripling of the inflation-adjusted expenditures for police have more or less kept pace with the overall increase in state expenditures, meaning they're keeping track with the GDP. But I ask you something, my friends, and I am very, very curious. Back in 1977, we spent about 4% in total, with just across the board, state and local governments, on police. And today, it's about the same amount, because the GDP has gone up. What over the past 50 or so years would justify the police budget raising with our GDP? Crimes in this country have plummeted to less than half what they used to be. So why is it necessarily the case that police spending has to increase proportionally in the way that it has?
You'll recall what was going to happen. Then there was a couple people after stop and frisk gets removed, the city has learned its lesson. By the end of this year, there is going to be less than 50,000 stop and frisk stops. A lot of stops, you say. In 2011, there were 685,000. Despite that, it's greater than 95% less stop and frisk stops. Robberies are down 14% across New York City from last year. Grand larcenies, including thefts of Apple devices, I guess phones and stuff, are also down by roughly 3%. A record low 335 homicides in 2013. Now that we're at December, only 290 killings. So there'll have to be 45 killings in the next month.
Well, they haven't said. That's the central mystery. Now suddenly it is obvious. It should have been obvious the first day.
In this month, rather, for it not to be another record. Officers begin this week a pilot program wearing body cameras in 3 police commands. The new marijuana policy instituted where they're not going to make arrests based on a small amount of marijuana, which is announced in November. It's been in effect for 2 weeks, has resulted in 61.2% decline in arrests.
I'm going to give you a bunch of facts in a row, and people are going to get really uncomfortable. They're going to feel really difficult about this stuff, because here's the reality. If you base your opinion on the facts, this may force you to come to some conclusions you wish you didn't have to come to.
Yesterday, Judge Shira Scheindlin decided that stop and frisk in New York City was unconstitutional, that it was being applied to blacks and Latinos at far greater a rate than their percentage of the population, and that they were being unfairly targeted to violate the 4th and the 14th Amendments. Fox News respectfully, kind of, disagrees. And what I love is the way that they are couching it in terms of, no, Fox knows best for black people. They weren't trying to protect white people, they were trying to protect black people. Oh, I didn't know that. Well, Laura Ingraham, tell me all about it.
This is an unconstitutional, unreasonable search and seizure. Just on the face, it's not really a search, it's a quick pat down. It's not a seizure, you're not really seizing the person, it's just a very momentary stop.
Get racial profiling, with them as the targets of an occupying force.
I remember them banging my head into this.
Is it fair, some minorities ask, that African Americans and Hispanics make up 52% of the city's population, but black and Latino males represent 84% of those stopped?
NYPD! Keep your hands off me!
But to the police and mayor, stop and frisk, enforced by a racially diverse department, is a highly effective crime-fighting tool.
We have to give the members of our police department the tool they need to do their jobs without being micromanaged and second-guessed.
Like, this guy had his hands up, and the cop pulls down his mask and sprays him. Why?
I'm the president of Justice for Black Lives, and as you may know, we had a protest for Isaiah, the man who was wrongfully arrested by the Grand Rapids Police Department. We had that protest on Saturday. And once again, the GRPD met a protest against their brutality with more brutality. And according to GRPD's statement, no one was injured Saturday night. And I'm here to tell you, that is a bold-faced lie. To say that no one was injured on Saturday completely erases the trauma that not only myself experienced, but almost everyone in this room experienced at the hands of the Grand Rapids Police Department. I have one question for each and every one of you. How far are you willing to let this go? Because not only did the Grand Rapids Police Department assault community members, they also assaulted the man that we were protesting for and his mother, as if that family has not gone through enough trauma already. Which one of us citizens have to die for you to understand that there is wrong? I'm so sick of having to come up here and practically beg each and every one of you to take our lives into consideration just to get blank bought out by the DeVos's stares from each and every one of you. You all have a responsibility to the citizens of Grand Rapids, not just the ones that line your pockets. And by you all continuing to be silent about the racism and brutality from the GRPD just shows how much we need to vote each and every one of you out. Because it's clear that you don't care. You don't care. You don't care. Like I've said before, if you don't like what I have to say, then prove me wrong, because I know you see what's happening. And I'm tired of hearing excuses of, oh, we're working on this and we're working on that. I want to see results. My people are bleeding in the streets and you're doing nothing. Defund GRPD. Put that funding into our community and towards real crime prevention, because I know you also see the rising crime rate. Why is the budget for the police rising with the crime rate, yet the crime rate is not getting any lower? The numbers for the police are getting higher, but the crime rate isn't getting any lower. So it's clear that the police department is not helping. We need real crime prevention, staffed with professionals that actually know how to address this, not random people that have only been training for 5 months. Make these meetings more accessible. Black Lives Matter.
Well, a lot of the police spending that we have engaged in has not gone to the types of tactics and resources that actually lead to a decrease in crime. For example, one of the largest spikes in police spending over the past 20 years has been police departments buying up surplus military-grade weaponry from our military, following its obsolescence or following its, replacement in, our various and ongoing wars in the Middle East. And that's why you've been seeing so many of these pictures and videos going on lately of like police, like literally just like 8 of them riding on the back of like these fucking like, I know they're not really tanks, but like these armored cars that are running down these plated like holy shit. Yeah, APCs or whatever. Well, I got called out in that in stream recently because I said something's an APC and it turns out it was actually a slightly different type of APC. But like, we're looking at the protests. We've seen what's happened here. Are the protesters bringing anti-tank rifles? Maybe I've missed the videos. When I look at all the BLM protests, I don't see people like lining up on rooftops with like 50 caliber like explosive rounds that can penetrate through like an APC like car door or something. I don't really see that. Protesters are actually specifically taught to engage in tactics that are meant to minimize police crackdown, which, I mean, for all the good that does, American police don't really need an excuse. So why are we spending that money?
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson.
Just seems like tired cops making a bad decision. What the Managing a riot all night makes you tired and dulls your ability to think rationally. You don't think it was right, but mistakes happen. If they don't want to get shot, they should have stayed home. Hey, I have an ideal. Why don't you leave and go to another country that you would feel more at home in? Let us know when you gone, so we can start your going away party. American patriots don't kiss boots. We're the one who's showing them in mounts of terror, just like yours. God bless America. God bless Trump. God bless our patriot. Government helping poor people? Bad. Socialism. Communism. Government kicking, beating, shooting, macing, and tear gassing unarmed, peaceful protesters? Freedom. America. Base. A cop could literally punch a newborn baby in the face, and these people would be like, baby shouldn't have looked at him funny. They are incapable of admitting the police can be in the wrong. It's amazing. Like, I really don't know what it is. Either, like I said, they're just complete simps for daddy government, or this is something I like to call compulsive contrarianism. Everything the left likes, we must dislike. Everything the right likes, we must dislike. Everything the left dislikes, we must like.
What happened?
That's right. It took place over the course of an hour and a half. It actually happened inside the federal courthouse just behind me. And essentially, she is arguing that federal agents here need to have a restraining order. She wants a restraining order against the Department of Homeland Security, as well as several agencies, pointing to what she argues are illegal arrests that have happened here in Portland, pointing specifically to the case of one protester by the name of Mark Pettibones, 29 years old. According to his account, he was approached by federal agents who did not represent who they were, did not say who they were. They pulled him into an unmarked van. He said he was completely terrorized. She's pointing to that, as well as other social media accounts, as evidence that this restraining order is necessary. Now, the federal government in court today did not dispute the account of Mark Pettibone in their arguments, but they did say that that is something that can be addressed in civil courts, that instituting a temporary restraining order would be an overreach of sorts. That was their argument. Now it's with a judge. Unclear when we're going to get a ruling on her application for the temporary restraining order.
Today it was just nice to hear. We're going to go find some more people. Instead of chasing people around, we're going to hunt. You guys are out hunting people now. It's just a nice change of tempo.
Yep, agreed.
People.
All right, we're rolling down Lake Street. The first we see, we're just hammering them with 40s.
Yes, sir.
Is that a good copy?
I like that. No, hold on to those 40s. All right. Never mind. Mark, I'm good.
This thing ain't going anywhere.
Hold on a second. Let me check your credentials. Make a few phone calls just to verify who the.
They think they can do whatever they want.
I'd love to scatter them, but it's time to put 100 people in jail.
Yeah.
And just prove the mayor wrong about his white supremacists from out of state.
I agree.
Although this group probably is predominantly white.
Oh yeah.
Because he's not looting and fires.
5, 6 of them.
That's an issue in this country that gets ignored or completely denied, and I think that's wrong. I think that's what also leads to the division that we're experiencing.
Well, that's going to be the major cultural war issue, right? Because the fact is that I, as a parent, believe that if you're going to teach...
You think there's no systemic racism?
I believe that it depends on how you define systemic racism. So if you're talking about legal regimens of racism, no. Mm-hmm. If you're talking about history has after effects, of course. So I think there's a real problem with semantic overload in a lot of our political conversations. And when people say systemic racism, sometimes what they mean by systemic racism is history has consequences. You can't have 150 years of, 300 years of slavery followed by Jim Crow and that not have after effects, which of course is true. And sometimes what they mean is that every inequality in American public life is due to some systemic inequity that is currently taking place in the United States, which I think is absolutely 100% false.
I mean, we certainly see that playing out in our criminal justice system. Are you going to deny that, or are you going to say that, let's say, African Americans or Latinos are just inherently more criminal? Or
I'm not going to say either of those things. I'm going to say that.
So why are they overrepresented in our prisons?
I mean,
especially when you consider.
This may be beyond the scope of our conversation, but the answer is because not all groups commit crimes at the same level. That has nothing to do with genetics. That has everything to do with circumstances.
Could you guys hold those thoughts on education? Because I do want to get back to some of that.
Eventually, some people who presume themselves to be smarter than the sort of rabid neo-Nazis or, white supremacists out there started, coding genetic predisposition towards crime as a cultural predisposition towards crime. But most people can't even describe Black culture or like a Latino culture, any of these sort of like inherently criminal cultures in a way that's distinct from larger American culture itself, because that's just what culture is. It's just another sort of like loaded term that never gets unpacked. Like, what do you mean by Black culture? In the context of like America, Black culture is a very specific thing in relation to those exact historical facts that you just said are people that you are willing to accept are actually causing these sort of inequalities. So, you're having it kind of both ways, where it's just like, oh, we're saying it's cultural, but culture exists in this kind of vacuum that people are allowed to acontextually draw from and choose and make these choices to do, the right or wrong thing, even though we know that the laws are also like still just literally racist.
Sure, that's dramatic. You know what's dramatic? The invasion of the country. We're going to talk more about that. We're going to talk about how the other side has openly admitted that this is about bringing in voters that they want and they like, and honestly diminishing and decreasing white demographics in America. We're going to say that part out loud.
He's like, fuck it, I'm going to be a Nazi, dude. Fuck it, I'm saying it, dude. He's literally like, he's like, fuck it, I'm saying it. We must secure a future existence for white children. Like, he's literally just like 14 wordsing it, dude. Wow. Wow, Charlie. Okay, that's
so many people in the corporate media are afraid to talk about it. Charlie Kirk here. Check out the Charlie Kirk Show podcast.
Goddamn, dude. Goddamn. That's a mask off, and the mask is the Klan mask.
It was the struggle, of this community that really overturned that, and I think that lesson that we can, struggle together and actually make incredible change and change history. That's a big shift for this community, and so we want to continue to organize and continue to build on that and continue fighting for all of the things that are impacting people here
think our main task, one of our main tasks, in addition to fighting for our people here, oppressed nations people here, is to be fighting for oppressed nations people, in Venezuela, in Cuba, in all these other places where, the clutches of capitalism and imperialism and racism and everything that comes with it, come. I think that when we fight for that here, it gets recognized. And I just want to say, salute to everybody who wrote statements of support, who wrote letters to the district attorneys. You know who you are. I appreciate you, and we're going to continue this fight for us, for you, and for everybody.